Hello, everyone. Madilynn Dale here, and I've got a fantastic guest for you guys to check out today. I have been reading over his book, and you guys are going to love it. It's a high fantasy adventure. It just drags you in and pulls you and gets you hooked. So, we are going to meet Daniel Myers today, and he's going to tell us a little bit about his work. So, Daniel, how are you today?
I'm doing very well. How are you today?
I'm doing well. So I have to ask first off, this is your debut novel, right?
That's correct.
Where did you get the inspiration for this story?
Well, I mean it's a pretty common trope. Um, so I just through many years of gaming and I think I originally got the story about 25 years ago when I thought it, and it was based on characters from my gaming group. And in fact, most of the characters are from my gaming group. And I just had this, you know, idea to have my main character have a love interest with the princess, and then I had to try to think of ways to make it challenging. And so I was like, oh, how about a deposed princess? And it just kind of flowed from there. And I I have three books planned, and I'm got the second one written, and it's starting to go through the editing process now. And then the third book I'm in the process of writing. I hope to have it written by the end of the year.
Nice. That is a huge goal to attain. But like that makes me super excited since I've started into this world that you've created. I'm very much looking forward to it. I'm not as far into the book as I want to be because life is crazy right now, but it is so good. You guys, you need to make sure you pre-order this book. We'll have the links below. So the cover is the first thing that jumps out at me. You have a giant horse, you've got a knight and a lady in the background. So go ahead and tell our readers and viewers a little bit about that. And I'll pull this image back up, guys, for you to look at it as he talks about it.
So the horse is, it's not a horse. It's a singular creature in the world. And there's some backstory to it that I could go into, but I won't. It gets explained, I think, in the third book a lot more. And it's Eris is the horse's name. We'll call the horse just for lack of anything else. But Eris is really an interesting character that it's he's kind of just there for the first two books, and then in the third book, it's revealed, that he's a little more than a horse. And so I love Eris. I think Eris is probably my favorite character in the complete storyline. And the scene on the front, it is a scene from the book. And it was when Alejandre, who is the warrior, meets Ariandel, who is a very young, I think like 80-year-old elf woman or female elf. And it doesn't go well for him.
Yeah, their interaction in the actual scene in the book is pretty heated. But I mean, I don't blame her. She's just been shot, so. And you guys can see it on the cover that she's got an arrow sticking out of her shoulder. So.
Yeah, and she has her reasons, and he, is being true to his nature. And it's not that either one of them is wrong. It's just it doesn't go well.
Yeah. And I have to ask about the different colored armor that you feature the knights in. It's kind of like dragon scales, but you have, I'm trying to remember, blue and then the red one, right?
Correct.
I think, okay. Do you have a purpose for the difference in that? I'm if it's a spoiler, you don't have to share it, but like totally curious.
It's not a spoiler. The armor, actually, I wrote a short story. And if you go to my Knights Trials Facebook group, it's posted in the Facebook group. But the Knights Trials Facebook group has the entire story and explains where the armor came from. and it comes from what I call a tullamore, which is when two different species of dragons mate,
Ooh.
they create a tullamore, and tullamores are very varied of their abilities or attributes or whatever. So the tullamore they met had nearly impenetrable hide, the scales, and so those that armor is made from the scales of the tullamore they fought. And
Nice.
then
I wondered about that as I read that. I was like, okay, I know there's got to be a significance behind this armor. Like, what is it? So that's why I'm asking.
yeah, and that's why he's in scale mail and not plate mail.
Mhm.
And I think too that I try to have a little variations in people's armors. Um, the elf don't wear really heavy armor at all. Where the human knights and stuff just are like really armored, and the dwarves are little tanks. You can't possibly get through their armor. So, yeah, it's just the red and blue are mainly just so people can distinguish the two of them.
Nice. So, with this story and creating it, have you developed a writing routine to create more of what's going to happen in this world?
Not really a routine. I tend to write in the mornings and weekend mornings, especially when it's quiet in the house. I'm an early riser, so I get up 5 o'clock, and nobody else is up at the house until 9, 10, 11, depending.
Yeah.
I have young or not young kids. I have 20 something children, so they usually are not rising before noon, um, unless they have to work.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's when I generally write. And my process. I actually started with the map of my world, and then I kind of figured out where things were going to happen, and then after that, I just outline what I want in the story by chapter, and then I write, you know, scene names or descriptions of the scenes, and then I start writing, and then everything changes.
Nice. So, would you call yourself a planner or a pantser with that?
I would call myself a plantster. And
Yes.
once I start writing, it's totally pantser. I don't really have the scenes planned out that in depth. I just
Hmm.
like, you know, they fight a Tullamore. That's
Yeah.
the scene name. And then I just start writing the fight with the Tullamore. And
So it's like a
sometimes it
general
changes.
idea.
And sometimes it's like, oh, this would be really cool if I brought this back later,
Yeah.
and so this can be foreshadowing. And then sometimes I go back and I say, well, this kind of comes out of the blue, or one of the editors say this kind of came out of the blue. You should foreshadow it earlier. So then I have to go back to an earlier, scene and do some foreshadowing. So that happens quite a lot. So, but when I start writing, I'm definitely a pantser. I have no idea where it's going other than the broad story arc.
The characters kind of take over, huh?
A little bit.
I write the same way. Like I try to do like a rough outline and it just like ends up going like way over here into like left field or whatever. And I'm like, well, okay. Are we still on the same plot idea? Like, are we still gonna end here? It's like, okay, we're getting there. So it's
Yeah.
always fun because your characters are like, oh, here's a little surprise.
Yeah. And
So
you add character traits, and then,
mhm.
you have to sit and, okay, well, how would he handle this? And how does he change? And, what's the impetus for the change? So yeah, that's always challenging to
Mhm.
to smoothly incorporate into the story.
Yeah. So your characters, when you start creating them, do you do research into the names? Like what kind of aspects do you tie in? Do you list out their like personality traits? What goes into that?
No. I have broad, I broadly have in my mind, what the characters are like. Um, so, for example, one of my characters really resents the main character Alejandro, just because Alejandro's, a young, you know, at the top of his game fighter, and he's, 50 something, and, still a really tough fighter, but he's just not, um, he's past his prime, I'll say. So
Yeah.
that creates, and they're still friends, but you have that kind of tension or resentment that kind of comes through every once in a while. Some of his, teasing is a little more biting than maybe is called for.
But it's a good character. So I like his character so far that from what I've seen. And I
I do
haven't really
too.
found somebody I don't like yet. So which is good. I know it'll happen because like there's always that antagonist that likes to pop in. So I'm getting
Yeah,
there.
you'll get to Sir Rodney.
Ah,
But you know what the thing is too is when I think of characters, I always picture somebody in my head.
mhm.
So like Braxlow is Idris Elba, and it's like if anybody's gonna play him, it's gonna be Idris Elba, and so when I'm writing too, I kind of imagine Idris Elba, based on what shows I've seen him in and how
Yeah.
he acts. I kind of put that flavor into the character as well.
That is awesome because he's a great actor. I love many of the characters he plays. So
Yeah,
that makes me excited that you do that with your work. Because I do that too. I mean, I don't have any. Actually, I think I take that back. I do kind of have somebody that would fit his character, but that's not who I. When I created the character, that's not who it was. But I don't know. It's funny how you pull in people from like the world like that into your characters when you write them.
hmm
It makes it more fun because then you're like, if somebody ever asks you, who would you cast as this character? Because I get that question on occasion, like, what movie star would you put as a certain character? You have that to answer with and everything. So, which did you see that with the other characters? Did you have anybody that fit theirs?
I have almost all the main characters.
Hey.
You know, Curiously though, Sibley, the other main character,
Mm-hmm.
um, I don't. He was my character when I gamed with him, so
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think of anybody else. But like, um, oh, I'm not going to be able to remember her name now, but it's so bad. Ana de Amos or Armas
Mm-hmm.
is Ariandel. Uh, so whenever I write Ariandel, I'm thinking of Ana de Armas, who was in the last James Bond film.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I, it almost everybody there's an actress like that actor or actress that I think of when I think of them.
Sweet, but they have like their own personal like attributes they bring into the character, and that's why they got picked for that part. Like it fits them better. So
Yeah,
that's really
absolutely.
cool that you've got it tied in like that. So the gaming history that you've got, is it what game did you play? Is it D&D
All
or
sorts. Played D&D, played Pathfinder, played RuneQuest, played. Uh, oh, there's a bunch of them over the years. I think a lot of them have gone away. So now we pretty much just stick to Pathfinder.
yeah.
But I've played like BattleTech and other non fantasy based games,
Mm-hmm.
and I really like gaming with my friends because it's mainly just hanging out. Uh, which again, we have friends that have been friends for 40 years, so
Yeah.
we like to get together and do stuff and you know talk to each other, and we have inside jokes that go back and forth, and you know if you read and you look at the names closely, you'll find some really nice Easter eggs, and there's some uh, there's some inside jokes with my friends that nobody will get but us, but they're kind of
But that's what makes it so fun when you're writing the story because you read back over it and you're like, ah, yes. I love putting those in stories and like especially when you come across them. And it's even crazier when someone you know reads it and gets it, and they're like, I can't believe you put that in there. It's like, I'm glad you got it. Nobody else has got it. So, little happy moment of the day when they do that.
Yeah, that was a couple comments two of my friends said. Is they're like, nobody else is going to get this but us. I'm like, exactly. That'll
It's
be special
perfect
for us.
though. Yes, and it's fun because then you kind of like you're tying in your friends to that, and it's I don't know. I feel like it makes it more personalized for like those that you're close to because they do.
Absolutely.
Everybody you're close to influences like your writing and what goes on in books, whether they realize it or not. So, so with the story, do you have a message that you want to get across to your readers or something for them to take away?
Not really. I'm not. I have overall themes of just people being brave and noble and acting, correctly, I guess, however
Mm-hmm.
you want it, for their time. But yeah, I'm not trying to change society with my book. I just want to entertain people. And so
That's the best. It's
I'm
something we
hoping,
can escape into.
yes, that's my goal. It's because when I read, that's what I like to do. Um, when I first read Tolkien, it was just great to immerse yourself in that world. And you'll see a lot of Tolkien probably influenced in my writing. You know, if you don't, then it's just because I'm not very good. But
But you're starting out, and what I've read so far is really good. So I mean,
good.
it's you're great with where you're at. So do you
Well,
have
been
like
going through a lot of editing. So
yes, editing is like never ending. Oh my gosh. I feel that because I've been trying to work through edits with my work lately, and I sit here and stare at the computer. I'm just like, oh my gosh. Because I'm sure you do it too. You do a lot of you do a lot of your editing before you send it to the editor. And it's just like, oh gosh. Never
I
ending.
try to have it structurally pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But as I said, I've had it go through four editors,
Yeah.
I think now, and all of them were. I mean, I cut so many words because of the editing, and that was really effective because I think it really tightened up the story.
Yeah.
And I could probably cut some more words, but I'm to the point where part of it is it doesn't contribute to this book, but I've got 3 books in mind, and it's foreshadowing or setting up stuff in other books. And
Yeah.
so one of the comments I got, was these characters just go, and then they just disappear. And I'm like, well, they come back.
Yeah.
But
It's like they have a part later on. You got to get
yeah,
there. And that's part of like with series. Like a lot of people when they first start like reading over your stuff, because I've had the same issue of working on book 2 in my Ember series. I've had beta readers be like, "Why is this important? Like, where is this? So this is the second book in the series. You got to go back. You'll find it in the first. Oh, wait, in the first book." So like, it's just like they reappear, and you're like, "Oh, where did this person come from? Why aren't you explaining it?" It's like because it was already explained who they were in another spot. So
yeah, and sometimes you have to remind people a little bit, but I try to between the 2 books, because they happen in basically rapid succession. The
yeah.
second book starts where the first book ends,
Mm-hmm.
and so but I do kind of go back a step, and the start of my second book actually is like the last chapter. It starts in the last chapter of
Mm-hmm.
my first book, but it does kind of go back. So you reacquaint everybody with,
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, this is where we were, and now we're starting again.
Yeah, and that's always important too to have like that bring them like up to speed kind of thing. That
Hmm.
way, and I'm one of those like I want my readers to read my first book in the series, but if you accidentally pick up the second book by like not realizing it and then going back and getting the first book, it will still kind of make sense. So, I mean, hopefully they'll go back and get it and read it in order. But yeah. And with your second book, you said you're working on this second book in the series too.
It's
right
going
now?
through editing right now.
Okay.
So
Do you feel like you have more? Are you more partial to the first book over the second book? Like, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think the first book is more storytelling and really follows a story arc, while the second one is nearly all action and subterfuge. And then the third book is kind of a good mix, and again, it closes the story out, the story arc out. So it's I'm really kind of partial to the first because that's where I develop all the characters and put a lot of stuff in. So it's hard to pick because there's a lot of cool stuff in the second book too, and the third book so far is shaping up to be pretty good too. I've got some really great twists and ideas and stuff to go into that, and tons of people die.
Sometimes that's gotta happen.
Yeah.
So, do you have a favorite scene that you've written in the series so far?
I do, and it's a minor scene, and
Yeah.
it's a minor character, but I don't know if you read like Sword of Shannara.
Yeah, the Shannara Chronicles. Yes.
Yeah, and there's other stories too where you have kind of the absent-minded wizard, and so I wanted that trope, but I didn't want it to be one of my characters. And so I just wrote a scene with, again, one of the other minor characters, Victor, going to see his old teacher who was exactly that. And it was just a fun scene to write.
Yeah.
And just dealing with Victor, dealing with him, and and he knows it's an act, but he wants something from the guy, so he's going along with the act, and then it reveals at the end that the guy's probably not quite so absent-minded, but he's talking to his cat, and his cat is answering him, and it was fun. So
that's awesome, and I like that you've got a cat tied in there. I'm a cat person. I don't know if you saw my cat earlier back here on the piano, or at least one of them. I have 4, so it's crazy. Busy house full of animals and a kid. So something I like to ask all the authors I interview, and I know you've watched some of my interviews, so you may already be prepared for this question, but what do you do for self-care? As a creative, a lot of people like that are non-creative turn to writing and stuff. But since you're an author too, tell me about your self-care.
Well, I got a hot tub right outside my office.
Yes.
And I have a good friend that I go and have cigars and bourbon with, and I have a darts league on Monday nights to kind of get out of the house and go socialize. And my wife and I love to go see movies, so we do a lot of that. Every once in a while, I'll go get a massage, but for the most part, it's just I'll relax in the hot tub. I'll sit and watch TV or movies with my wife. Go have a cigar with my friend, or go out to the bar, and that's kind of the only self-care.
Hey, that is still self-care, and it's important, and it helps. It keeps your mental focus and everything. So
keeps me grounded. I mean, especially with COVID, we went so long without, being able to go and do those types of things, that now it's super nice to be able to go out again and meet people and see people and talk to people. And
it's like nobody realized how much we took advantage of that before COVID hit, and then it's like, oh my gosh, we don't have that anymore. Like, I need that. So
and you do. I mean, we're social creatures, and we need that interaction, to stay healthy and to be us.
Yeah, that's so true. So with this book, when is this book dropping?
I'm supposed to get the final edit. The line edit and the proofing is being done as we speak. It should be done by the end of July.
Yeah.
I'm going to a convention in Minneapolis, and I'm hoping to have it, all the corrections and everything done by that. So like middle of August, I'm hoping it drops.
Perfect. So guys, make sure you hop on that pre-order and get this book because you're going to love it. I'm loving it so far. So, all right, Daniel, go ahead and tell our viewers where they can find this book and you.
They can find me on Facebook. They can find if they look up the Knights Trials, that's the group on Facebook. They can also go to knightstrials.com, and it's ssknightstrials.com, and wyvernsairy.com. And those are, we just got Wyvern's Airy up, and now we're starting to add content to that. And Knight's Trials, by hopefully for sure by the end of July, we'll have that going. And I think I sent one to you, but if they go to Knight's Trials and they send me their mailing address and their email address, I have these very nice little bookmarks for them.
Which they are really cool. And I loved that you did the wax seal for your letter. That was awesome. That was like, oh my gosh. Because it's so fancy. Like it fits with the theme of the book and everything too. So
yeah,
sorry,
and
fangirl moment.
I appreciate you noticing that, because that was kind of what I was going for is the people that are in the group, of the Facebook group. Like I said, I've got a couple short stories that I'm going to be posting to that. I posted one. I've got another that I'm posting that really just kind of go deeper into the characters. Yes. And you'll know which characters I really like, because those are the ones I write the short stories about. So
hey, I mean, it gives them more like depth and backstory when you do that. So.
Yeah, without having to tie up the book to do it.
Yeah, that is awesome. And this is going to be available in paperback as well as ebook, right?
That's correct.
Awesome. On Amazon only, or are you going to go wide?
I'm going to go as wide as I can. The artist who did the cover is willing to provide me all of the formats that I need. So yay. I want to make it available as widely as possible.
Awesome. Well, Daniel, thank you so much for being on our show today.
I appreciate you having me. This has been fun.
Yes. And guys, here's the book image again. Make sure you grab this book on pre-order. Thanks for hanging out with us.